Let's say it to all the guys. I've met your amazing cast.
Oh, you have,
now.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely amazing. Huge congrats on the film.
Oh, great.
Absolutely loved it. How has the journey been over the year from Sundance to now?
It's been filled with anticipation. We're having a baby, myself and my partner as well, so we have these two things coming into the world at a sort of a similar time. And you know, you show a film at a festival and then you kind of have to wait a year. It's sort of like having sex in a film terms. It's like the moment of conception is the festival, and then you wait to see who picks it up, how it gets sold. So it has been an interesting. We've been sort of had that nice feeling after Sundance of, okay, we have something here. It's like, to continue my pregnancy metaphor, it's like getting a scan and like everything's there and it's all good.
Yeah.
But you don't know the sex yet, and you don't know so much about this journey that you're going to go on. Yeah. So I'm just going to continue comparing it to pregnancy.
That's fine. That's good, isn't it? Actually. Because I think you've been there twice before, haven't you? With Once and Begin Again. Was it a calmer experience the third time around, or was it? It was
actually Begin Again. We weren't there. Begin Again was Toronto.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like a second. I was going to say a second coming, but that Christ metaphor is not really acceptable. But it was a bit like, it was amazing. It was an amazing response coming back for a second time. Because I thought, like, it can't get any better than once in Sundance. That was a gorgeous experience. And it did well at the festival, and we got sold and stuff, and which is every filmmaker's dream to even get into Sundance, like an independent filmmaker. Absolutely. But to sell your film and was amazing. So I was quite nervous coming back with Sing Street, because I was sort of like, you know the way, like, with a girl you go up and you, like, you know, if you get a girl's attention in a bar, that's enough sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't want to screw it up by actually having to go on a date now and show her who you really are. And I get a sense of coming back to Sundance is like, they're going to hate me the second time. And they're going to go, oh, that was just a one-hit thing, thing. So I was very nervous for that. But the film went down really well, and you know, it was just a blast to be back there the second time. It was great.
Yeah, because the guys were saying they even did a gig sort of as part of Sundance, like after the film had screened and stuff like that, which is just.
They did. They played a few songs and people roared. Americans are like that. They're like, oh my God, the people from the screen are here? It's amazing to them. In a lovely sort of way. It's almost like, it's a weird one. I don't know why they get so blown away by the idea that you're going to meet the director now. Yeah. Or hear some of the songs from the film. That really appeals to them. It's sort of like theatre to them or something, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you get the movie. The movie is like a magnetic version of the story, but then you get the live actors. Yeah. It's kind of amazing.
I think that was the same for me before I did this, where I would go to a film festival, London Film Festival. You get like an intro from the director. You're taking photos. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's.
I'm the opposite. I hate to meet. No, I genuinely. I like, if I hear a film director is in the house, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to have to meet this guy. Like, I mean, I love so many film directors. I never want to meet them. Like, I think if I met P.T. Anderson, I probably couldn't stand them. Or like Noah Baumbach. Those guys are probably super pretentious and their films are great, but I just, in a way, it's sort of like, I'm happy. Or like, what would have been like meeting Orson Welles?
Yeah.
It's kind of great that you can't meet those people who are untouchable in a way. I sort of like to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm always a letdown. I'm convinced. I meet girls who are like, oh my God, I love your movie. And then I speak to them and then you just see them fading. You know, like, I'm just not that great a person, really. You know, stick to the films and let's leave it at
that. So this one is semi-autobiographical, and that is
they all are. They kind of all are.
Stuff.
I mean, I bet you the guys that make the Fast and the Furious find a way of making that story mean something personal to them. I think all films are. I think the second you press record on a camera now, you have to sort of dig deep into yourself in a way, you know.
Was this a story you always wanted to tell? Was it something that you wanted to tell earlier in your career, or was it the time now for you to go back to that?
No, that's a good question. It was actually something I had come up with earlier and felt that it wasn't. I hadn't myself or my generation hadn't moved far enough away from the 80s. It was still a horror film, the 80s to us. Like, it was still the wound was still fresh of getting turned down by people. And ridiculous clothes that you wore that you can't have cold sweats in the middle of the night. Did I go out and talk to somebody like that? There was enough remove between, you know, we'd moved on far enough. So I felt that I actually took me 8 years before I came up with the idea, since I came up with the idea to actually making the film. And I think if I had left it any later, it would have missed the sort of... With films, period films, there's a time to make them, and there's a time not to make them. And it's interesting having the Linklater film. He's another hero of mine that I'm glad, and I hope in a way I never meet. Although I imagine he'd be cool, actually. You know, he's made a film about it's like 40-something-year-olds. Now is the time to reflect on maybe why they think they got where they are today, or why they didn't get where they are today, or what are the reasons that they are who they are.
Yeah.
And they sort of, you know, 40, 43, 44, it seems like the time to sort of go, you know, what were my influences? Who gave me a helping hand on this journey? You know, I think that's the sort of where you get into, you slow down, you go into fifth gear in life, and you sort of have a little bit more, third gear, and you reflect a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I was born in the 80s, but I can imagine when I watched the film, that's the sort of thing my dad would wear, because he was big into The Cure and Duran Duran, that kind of stuff. So
I get this all the time. I get these interviewers who are like, my dad.
My family's quite young though, so.
Yeah, seemingly, yeah.
So in terms of the casting, I mean, obviously with beginning in particular, you obviously had quite a lot of names that people recognisable names, but with this, obviously, you've gone for a lot of unknowns. Was it a long process to get all these guys, to find these guys and get them involved?
No, that was like putting ads in the paper. A lot of the guys in the film I know, Jack Rayner, Don Wycherley, and a load of actors that I love in other secondary roles, and, you know, less prominent role than the kids. But the kids were really, I put an ad in the paper, got a casting director, we put ads everywhere, and put it together that way, you know. And it was kind of a nice return. It was so different from the way we cast it Begin Again.
Were they, obviously I spoke to the guys and they were saying that you gave them a bit of an influence in terms of what they, you know, 80s, and listen to this and watch this and stuff like that. Was that something that you prepared beforehand, or you just said, go onto YouTube and watch as many music videos as you can from the 80s?
No, I think all I did in that aspect, in that sense, was imagine, okay, if I was around in the 80s, I was whatever age I was born in 72, so in 82 I was 10, so 86, 87, if somebody had taken me aside and said, okay, I'm going to make a film about the 60s, which is the equivalent gap, right? Yeah. My knowledge of the 60s as in 1987 or 1986 was, you know, like through movies, through occasional books and novels, but mainly through the television and movie that was streaming into our household, you know. But there's but I realized there's these massive black holes. So you ask your parents about the 60s, and what they're saying didn't compute with what I was seeing, because the films are giving you popular music are giving you tiny little clues to the decade, but there's these massive black holes of information that just, you know, and you jump from like 1962 to 1967, and then somebody who lived in the 60s actually tells you, no, there was a war in between them, and this happened, and you go, okay, it was an entire decade of, you know. And so that's all I did with the 80s with these kids, was fill in the little blanks that they had, that they had themselves from watching YouTube and reading stories and speaking to their parents about the 80s and stuff like that. That's really all I did. I didn't like curate an 80s experience or anything. I was just like, you know, there is a difference between the Smiths and Duran Duran, and here's kind of why, here's my version of why those things are so different. Or there is a difference between, you know, Thatcher and post-Thatcher, and here's the kind of journey that I went on as an Irish guy in terms of British politics or English politics or the troubles in the north of Ireland and all that stuff, you know. So it's just really filling in, because they're 16, they're kids, and it's so far, it literally is from the 80s to the 1960s, which seems like a massive gap to me, but actually it's only 20 or 30 years.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Other thing I was going to ask you, I know it's obviously it's got a romance thread line through the story, but it's also a story about brothers and brotherhood and all that kind of stuff. Was that something that came from your life as well, in terms of relationship with your brother, perhaps, or that kind of stuff? Because it's quite a strong relationship between the two.
It is.
Jack and Fred.
No, it's very strong. It's very personal to me, that side of things. But that wasn't the intent. The intention at the beginning of the film, when I started writing the film years ago, was to follow up once with something, and I thought it would be fun to take the story of being in a school band, forming a school band, to sort of survive the sort of slings and arrows of being in a tough school and being a bit of a fish out of water, which I was in my secondary school. And I just saw that as a sort of a funny idea. And then the other characters sort of fitted into place over the years of development, like the parents or the bully or Rafina. Because Rafina is like, you know, the Lucy Boynton role. She's kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of different girls in my mind. And I keep on meeting friends of mine, like male friends of mine, who are like, oh, she's a bit like your one, or she's a bit like that girl Helen. And I was like, oh, there is a bit of, you know what I mean? It's like the film tells you what it kind of wants to be itself, and the characters have to. So I didn't want to enforce my own memoirs on the film too much.
Was there a sense, obviously when you made this, which some people would say is still independent, but obviously you've got unknowns, that kind of thing. Was there, after you did Begin Again, did you get offers to do more American films or different films, bigger films, and is that something that in your future you could see yourself maybe doing? Not in terms of like blockbusters, but in terms of like slightly bigger budgets and stuff like that.
No, I didn't make any big screw you America. There was no oh, I'll come back to Ireland and make something pure. And it was more sort of Begin Again. I loved the experience of making Begin Again. I didn't love the experience of trying to get, I don't know, I wanted to work with with actors that I felt, I mean, not that there were certain issues that I had in Begin Again with one of your countrywomen, where it was sort of like trying to get somebody to do a job that they're not comfortable doing. Right. And I think it's a little bit like, the people in this film are wide-eyed, they love movies, they want to be actors. There's no movie stars in it. And trying to get a movie star to be in a film, is a hard thing to do because they're used to a certain, how can you enjoy making a film if you're worrying about the paparazzi and the journey home? Mm-hmm. How can you be committed to that? How can you explore yourself and give what you need? Because really acting in a movie, for the moment that the camera is on, and only for that moment, you are giving up something of yourself. There is a transaction, and that's the kind of the magic in a way of cinema is and of recording records or doing anything truthful as an artist. When you turn over the camera or the red light comes on in a recording studio, that you try to dig deep into yourself and tell a story. I struggled with that, with her on Begin Again a lot, and coming back to Ireland to make a film like with people that I knew and film actors that I loved it was something I needed to do. I needed to sort of press the refresh button and kind of come back to life a little bit.
Will that be next for you after the baby back to America or something similar to this?
Yeah, no, we've got a plan for a couple of things to do. We might go off and make a film in LA, but that's pending a few things. I'll always kind of go back and forth and there's loads of little Irish stories that I'd love to tell eventually, once I have the baby is the big production of the year for me. So my partner tells me.
Well, look, I wish you every success with this one because I absolutely love all your movies as well.
Appreciate
it. I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll let you know. Hopefully we'll be here in a couple of years' time talking about another film.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.